The passage you've provided seems to express a perspective linking Black people in the Americas and Europe to ancient Hebrew Israelites, particularly focusing on interpretations of biblical texts. This view suggests that the ancestors of Black people may include the descendants of ancient Israelites who were enslaved in Egypt, as well as those tied to the biblical story of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, among others. The passage also emphasizes the hardships faced by Black people, drawing parallels between the biblical experiences of the Israelites and the history of African slavery. It is important to note that the ideas and interpretations discussed here are part of a broader debate that blends history, religion, and cultural identity. These concepts are often debated by scholars and have different interpretations depending on cultural, historical, and theological perspectives. In academic discourse, the history of the Israelites, the 10 lost tribes, and the historical and archaeological evidence of ancient Israelite communities have been examined in various ways. However, the identity of modern Black people is deeply influenced by both historical experiences, such as the Atlantic slave trade, and their diverse ancestral roots, which include various African ethnic groups, cultures, and traditions. While many people explore their connection to different historical narratives, it's important to engage with these subjects in a way that promotes inclusivity, critical thinking, and respect for the diversity of human histories. Conversations about identity, race, and ancestry should be approached with sensitivity and awareness of their complexity. The interpretation of biblical passages, particularly from the book of Deuteronomy, as a prediction of the transatlantic slave trade, is a perspective that has been discussed in some religious and cultural circles. It draws connections between the suffering and hardships described in these texts and the historical experiences of African slaves during the Atlantic slave trade. Here's a closer examination of the key points you mentioned. Deuteronomy 28, verse 49. The Lord will bring a nation against you from far away, from the ends of the earth, like an eagle swooping down, a nation whose language you will not understand. This verse is often cited by those who argue that the transatlantic slave trade was foretold in the Bible. The idea is that the nation from far away could be referring to European colonial powers, including the British, Spanish, Portuguese, French, and others, whose language and culture were foreign to the enslaved Africans. The metaphor of the eagle is sometimes seen as a reference to the symbols used by European powers, such as the Roman eagle, which was later adopted by the United States. Deuteronomy 28, verse 64. Then the Lord will scatter you among all nations, from one end of the earth to the other. There you will worship other gods, gods of wood and stone, which neither you nor your ancestors have known. This prophecy, often interpreted as foretelling the dispersion of the Israelites, has been linked to the mass displacement of Africans during the transatlantic slave trade. The forced relocation of millions of Africans to various parts of the world, including the Americas and Europe, and their subsequent conversion to Christianity or other foreign religions is seen as fulfilling this prophecy. The idea of worshiping other gods aligns with the forced imposition of Christianity by slaveholders. Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. The Lord will send you back in ships to Egypt on a journey I said you should never make again. There you will offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one will buy you. This verse is often interpreted as foreseeing the enslavement and transportation of the Israelites by ships, similar to the way Africans were forcibly shipped across the Atlantic during the transatlantic slave trade. The mention of Egypt here is symbolic, representing a place of oppression and bondage, rather than a literal return to Egypt. It is suggested that the ships and slavery described in this verse are a metaphor for the horrors of the slave trade. While these interpretations draw a parallel between the biblical prophecies and the transatlantic slave trade, it's important to recognize that different people and scholars have varying interpretations of these texts. The historical and cultural context of the Israelites' experiences in ancient times is complex, and the experiences of African people during the transatlantic slave trade involve a range of factors, including the actions of colonial powers, the exploitation of enslaved peoples, and the resilience of those affected. Additionally, it is essential to approach these interpretations with an understanding of the broader historical context and the diversity of perspectives within religious and cultural discussions. These themes often prompt deep reflection on the legacies of slavery, oppression, and identity, and they're central to ongoing conversations about race, history, and justice. The narrative you've shared ties together historical, religious, and cultural perspectives that explore the idea of Black Israelites and their connections to the ancient Israelites. This theory suggests that some Black people, particularly those in the Americas, are descendants of the ancient Hebrew Israelites, influenced by various biblical and historical events. King Solomon, Queen Sheba, and their descendants. The relationship between King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, as mentioned in 1 Kings 10 verses 1 to 13, is often viewed as a significant moment of cultural exchange between Israel and the African kingdom of Sheba, which is believed to be in modern-day Ethiopia. The theory that King Solomon and Queen Sheba had a son, who later became the first emperor of Ethiopia, suggests a direct lineage connecting the ancient Hebrew Israelites with African peoples. The descendants of this union are proposed to be Black Hebrews, due to Queen Sheba's African heritage and Solomon's Israelite background. This theory also connects to the broader historical migration of Jewish communities. After the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, Jewish communities dispersed, with some moving to North Africa, integrating with local populations. Over time, this blending of cultures and identities is believed to have contributed to the formation of Black Hebrew Israelites, especially in regions with significant Jewish migrations like North Africa and the Americas. Jewish communities in Africa and the transatlantic slave trade. The idea that the descendants of ancient Israelites were among those who were enslaved during the transatlantic slave trade builds on the geographic overlap between regions of West Africa and historical Jewish settlements. Some supporters of this theory argue that many enslaved Africans were from areas where Jewish communities had lived or were believed to have lived. These communities, having integrated with indigenous populations, might have retained their Israelite heritage, which could have been obscured or erased through the process of enslavement and forced Christianization. The forced Christianization of enslaved Africans during the transatlantic slave trade is seen as a deliberate attempt by European colonizers to erase indigenous beliefs, cultures, and potentially any remnants of Israelite identity. The imposition of Christianity not only served as a tool for control, but also, according to some, sought to eliminate traces of ancestral knowledge that could link enslaved Africans to their Israelite roots. The Black Israelites today in modern times, some people of African descent, particularly in the Americas and the Caribbean, believe they are the descendants of the ancient Black Hebrew Israelites. This identity is often connected to a sense of spiritual and historical reclamation, with a desire to acknowledge a proud heritage that goes beyond the trauma of slavery. The assertion that Black people today are descendants of Israelites is seen as a way to reclaim dignity, self-worth, and a deeper connection to a rich and ancient history. The theory challenges conventional narratives that confine Black people's history to the transatlantic slave trade alone, suggesting instead that their heritage is linked to the ancient Israelites, a people chosen and loved by God. This view encourages Black individuals to look beyond the legacy of slavery and consider a broader historical context in which they are seen as the descendants of a mighty, spiritually significant people. Engaging with the narrative as with any historical or religious theory, these ideas are subject to debate and interpretation. Some people embrace the belief that their ancestors were part of the ancient Israelite diaspora, while others may view it with skepticism. It's essential to approach these discussions with an open mind, recognizing the complexity of both history and identity. For many, exploring their ancestry and understanding the full scope of their history provides a deeper sense of connection to both the past and present. The history of the Black Israelites, as you mentioned, is indeed fascinating and complex, woven into the broader story of African peoples and their experiences, especially in the context of the transatlantic slave trade. Whether or not one subscribes to the notion that Black people are descendants of ancient Israelites, these discussions offer valuable opportunities to explore the connections between history, culture, and identity. The historical narrative surrounding Black ancestry, especially in the context of the Black Israelites, underscores the resilience and struggles of Black communities. It draws attention to the importance of reclaiming a connection to a deep, meaningful heritage, often rooted in biblical traditions and spiritual resilience. Yet, this reclamation of identity has faced significant obstacles, particularly in the form of white supremacist narratives, which have historically sought to undermine the legitimacy of Black heritage and perpetuate misconceptions about African origins. The role of white supremacist narratives for centuries. White supremacist ideologies have worked to obscure and delegitimize the true history of Black people. These narratives have sought to disassociate African descendants from their historical roots, often presenting them as disconnected from their heritage or civilization. Such claims have been used to justify the subjugation and exploitation of Black individuals, creating a skewed portrayal of Black identity that diminishes the richness of African history. Through colonialism, the transatlantic slave trade, and centuries of oppression, the identities of many African peoples were deliberately erased, distorted, or replaced with stereotypes. The impact of these falsehoods has been profound, leading to a widespread misunderstanding of Black ancestry, particularly in relation to the biblical story of the Israelites. The Black Israelites and the struggle for identity. The Black Israelites, particularly those in the Americas, have long argued that their ancestry can be traced to the ancient Israelites, often using the biblical narratives of exile, oppression, and redemption to contextualize their own experiences. These connections resonate with the African American community's own history of slavery, segregation, and systemic racism. By viewing their plight through the lens of the Israelites' historical struggles, they find strength in the idea of overcoming adversity and reclaiming their rightful identity. This reclamation of heritage is more than an academic pursuit. It is a crucial part of healing and empowerment for many Black individuals and communities. Recognizing the true origins of the Black Israelites offers a way to reconnect with a sense of belonging, a spiritual heritage that transcends the trauma of slavery and centuries of marginalization. The emergence of Black Israelite movements the late 19th and early 20th centuries saw the rise of various movements among African Americans that sought to reclaim their identity and heritage. Influenced by the experiences of oppression, leaders like Frank Cherry and William Saunders Crowdy established early congregations that linked African Americans to the biblical Israelites. These movements provided a sense of pride, spiritual fulfillment, and purpose in the face of adversity. They not only emphasized the connection to the ancient Israelites, but also helped redefine Black identity, countering the dominant cultural narratives that sought to suppress Black history. Organizations like the Commandment Keepers and the Nation of Islam also played pivotal roles in solidifying the Black Israelite identity. They promoted a narrative that celebrated African ancestry, framed Black people as part of a proud, divine lineage, and challenged the mainstream cultural and religious narratives of the time. Through these movements, the Black Israelite identity became a powerful tool for asserting dignity and pride in the face of systemic racism and cultural erasure. Misrepresentation and the impact of white supremacy despite the important contributions of these movements and the growing recognition of the Black Israelite identity. White supremacist ideologies have long worked to distort and suppress this narrative. Historical records have been manipulated, and pseudoscientific theories have been promoted to undermine Black claims to their heritage. This not only reinforced false ideas of racial superiority, but also contributed to the erasure of Black people's connections to their true historical roots. Such misrepresentation has had lasting effects on the way Black identity is viewed today. It has perpetuated harmful stereotypes, including the notion that Black people are disconnected from any meaningful historical legacy or cultural foundation. These ideologies continue to affect the way Black identity is perceived in society, often framing it as secondary or inferior to that of other racial and ethnic groups. Reclaiming identity and promoting inclusivity. To truly understand the significance of the Black Israelites and their historical context, it's essential to engage with the narratives that have shaped our understanding of Black identity. This means critically examining the historical processes that have marginalized Black communities and actively dismantling the racist ideologies that have distorted their history. Reclaiming Black heritage, including the connection to the ancient Israelites, is not just about revisiting the past, it's about empowering Black people. today to recognize the fullness of their identity and the richness of their cultural legacy. In a world where identity is often politicized and distorted, acknowledging the true origins of Black people, whether through the lens of ancient Israelite heritage or through the diverse histories of African peoples, is an important step toward healing, pride, and unity. It promotes a more inclusive understanding of history that honors the contributions and experiences of Black individuals while challenging the dominant narratives that have excluded them for so long. By fostering a more nuanced and respectful conversation about Black ancestry, we not only honor the legacy of the Black Israelites, but also support the ongoing quest for recognition, respect, and equality in a world still grappling with the impacts of racism and colonialism. The efforts of Black Israelites to reclaim their heritage and identity serve as a profound act of resistance against centuries of misrepresentation, marginalization, and distortion of their history. By framing Black people solely as descendants of slaves, white supremacist narratives have attempted to reduce them to mere victims of history, ignoring their rich cultural and spiritual legacy. This limited view not only diminishes the complexity of Black history, but also perpetuates a harmful victim narrative that overlooks the resilience, achievements, and contributions of Black communities throughout time. It suggests that Black individuals have little agency beyond their experiences of oppression, thereby obscuring the full scope of their rich, diverse cultural expressions and historical significance. The damaging effects of the victim narrative, the portrayal of Black identity, solely through the lens of slavery, is a disservice to the rich and varied history of African descendants. By reducing Black people to victims, society risks neglecting the immense contributions of Black individuals in the arts, sciences, politics, and culture. Furthermore, this narrative fosters a sense of disempowerment, as it often leaves little room for celebrating the agency of Black people in shaping their own destinies. It ignores the vast spectrum of human potential within Black communities and the ongoing, centuries-long struggle for justice, equality, and self-determination. The trauma of slavery, while undeniable, should not be the sole defining chapter of Black history. It must be contextualized within a broader story of resilience, creativity, and resistance. The reclamation of identity by Black Israelites in the face of these distorted narratives. Black Israelites have been at the forefront of reclaiming their identity and asserting their rightful place in history. They challenge the misrepresentation of their heritage, often pointing to their ancestral ties to the ancient Israelites. Through religious practices, cultural celebrations, and community organizing, they have sought to educate others about their true origins, refuting the falsehoods that have been perpetuated for centuries. This reclamation of identity is not simply about rewriting history. It is also about cultivating pride and unity within the Black community. By confronting white supremacist ideologies and advocating for a more accurate understanding of Black ancestry, Black Israelites have contributed to a broader movement that seeks to honor the complexity of Black history and celebrate the richness of Black identity. Their efforts serve as a reminder of the importance of recognizing and valuing diverse narratives, which in turn strengthens our collective understanding of heritage and identity. Modern movements and cultural practices, the reclamation efforts of Black Israelites have gained significant momentum in recent years, with many modern movements striving to restore the true history of this unique community. These movements emphasize the importance of connecting contemporary Black experiences to the historical narratives of the past. By highlighting the historical ties between African Americans and the ancient Israelites, these groups foster a sense of pride and belonging, elements that have often been denied due to systemic racism and historical misrepresentation. Cultural practices and beliefs play a crucial role in the affirmation of Black Israelite identity. Many engage in religious observances such as observing the Sabbath, celebrating Jewish holidays, and practicing dietary laws. These rituals are more than just expressions of spiritual devotion. They reinforce a collective identity that connects past struggles with present-day aspirations. Additionally, cultural expressions like music, dance, and art provide a vital outlet for Black Israelites to celebrate their heritage and create a sense of community, building on the traditions and creativity of their ancestors. Education as empowerment, education, and awareness are central to the journey of reclaiming heritage for Black Israelites. Through workshops, lectures, and community events, these movements seek to combat the misconceptions that have long surrounded their identity. By promoting historical research and sharing knowledge about their ancestry, they challenge the dominant narratives that have perpetuated stereotypes and misinformation. This emphasis on education is empowering, not just for Black Israelites, but also for the broader public, as it fosters a more nuanced understanding of Black identity and the complexities of African American history. The pursuit of knowledge is an essential tool in the broader effort to shape a more accurate and inclusive historical narrative. By equipping individuals with the facts about their heritage, these movements enable people to take pride in their roots and connect more deeply with their cultural legacy. This knowledge fosters a sense of dignity and belonging, allowing individuals to reclaim their power and assert their place in history. Moreover, by educating others, Black Israelites are creating a space for greater dialogue and understanding, where the diversity of Black identities is acknowledged and celebrated. The continuing struggle for recognition and respect, the journey of cultural reclamation undertaken by Black Israelites, is an ongoing process, one that speaks to the broader struggle for recognition, respect, and self-determination. By deepening their connection to their heritage, Black Israelites are contributing to the continued reshaping of Black identity and the broader dialogue about race, history, and justice. Their journey is a testament to the strength and resilience found in embracing one's roots, and a powerful reminder that the quest for recognition and respect is an integral part of the fight for equality. In a world that often distorts or erases the histories of marginalized peoples, the efforts of Black Israelites to reclaim their heritage are a vital part of a broader movement to restore dignity, pride, and self-worth. Their narrative enriches our collective understanding of history, highlighting the significance of diverse identities and the ongoing struggle for justice, equality, and cultural recognition. In today's society, the narrative of the Black Israelites has gained increasing visibility as part of the broader discourse on Black identity, heritage, and history. The rise of conversations about race and the complexities of historical representation has opened space for the unique experiences and claims of Black Israelites to be recognized. This shift reflects a growing understanding that Black identity is not monolithic, but encompasses a wide array of cultural, spiritual, and historical influences. The recognition of Black Israelites and their contributions highlights the broader, nuanced spectrum of the Black experience, both in America and around the world. Black Israelites and cultural movements. Black Israelites have made significant contributions to various cultural movements, particularly in the realms of social justice, spirituality, and cultural expression. Their emphasis on reclaiming their identity and heritage resonates with contemporary movements advocating for racial equity and the acknowledgement of marginalized histories. In asserting their connection to the ancient Israelites, Black Israelites challenge dominant societal narratives that have often reduced Black history to a single story of oppression and struggle. They instead encourage a more inclusive understanding of Black identity that highlights its richness, depth, and complexity. By highlighting the historical connection to the Israelites, Black Israelites also foster empathy and connection among different communities, emphasizing the shared struggles and triumphs that unite us all in the fight for equality. Their ongoing journey of cultural reclamation plays a crucial role in shaping how we understand history and identity in contemporary society. As conversations around race, identity, and historical representation continue to evolve, embracing diverse narratives will be key to building a more equitable and inclusive future for all people. The issue of white supremacist efforts to erase the history of the Black Israelites has gained increasing attention in recent years. The struggle for recognition and respect for their identity is deeply intertwined with the historical context of Black Israelites, who began to emerge in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. These groups sought to reclaim their heritage by asserting that they are descendants of the ancient Israelites. This belief system challenges mainstream narratives about race and identity, often positioning Black Israelites at odds with dominant societal structures that seek to suppress marginalized voices. By erasing the history of Black Israelites, white supremacist groups and broader societal forces aim to delegitimize their claims to heritage and identity, thereby invalidating their place within the larger historical narrative. This erasure has profound implications, as it perpetuates harmful stereotypes and denies Black Israelites the recognition they deserve. Understanding this struggle is essential for fostering a more inclusive and nuanced understanding of history and identity, as it reveals the ongoing fight against racism and the critical importance of preserving cultural heritage. In today's world, where discussions about race and identity are more prominent than ever, understanding the efforts to erase the history of the Black Israelites is essential. The rise of white supremacist ideologies has renewed the urgency to examine the complexities of racial identity and the historical injustices that continue to affect marginalized communities. By studying the erasure of Black Israelite history, we gain deeper insight into the broader implications of such ideologies and the profound impact they have on social and cultural recognition. The conversation surrounding the Black Israelites is not merely about revisiting the past, but is also about shaping a future where all identities are acknowledged and respected. Recognizing the struggle of Black Israelites is an essential part of the broader fight for social justice, equality, and the preservation of cultural heritage. This conversation is vital for anyone committed to challenging systemic racism and promoting a society in which every community can fully embrace their identity and history. The origins of the Black Israelites can be traced back to the late 19th century, when various religious and cultural movements emerged among African Americans who sought to reclaim their lost identity and heritage. These groups often turned to biblical narratives, claiming to be the true descendants of the ancient Israelites. Their beliefs provided a framework for understanding their experiences of oppression and racial discrimination, offering a sense of pride and dignity in the face of systemic inequality. The Black Israelites' unique cultural identity has played a significant role in shaping their community, fostering a sense of belonging and purpose. This identity, rooted in a shared history of dislocation and trauma, offers a counter-narrative to the dominant culture that often views African Americans solely through the lens of victimhood. By asserting their connection to the ancient Israelites, Black Israelites challenge the negative stereotypes and misconceptions that have long been associated with African American communities. The impact of colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade on African identity cannot be overstated. The forced displacement of millions of Africans from their homelands through slavery caused profound dislocation, stripping them of their cultural heritage and creating a deep sense of loss. This trauma left many Africans and their descendants grappling with questions about their place in the world and their cultural roots. The emergence of the Black Israelites as a response to this historical trauma represents an attempt to reclaim a lost sense of dignity and identity. Their belief in being descendants of the ancient Israelites offers a powerful counter-narrative to the stories of oppression and disenfranchisement that have so often defined the African American experience. By embracing the Black Israelite identity, many Black Americans have found a way to reconnect with their ancestral roots, redefining themselves in terms of spiritual strength, resilience, and divine heritage. This narrative not only provides a sense of personal empowerment, but also offers a broader cultural framework for understanding African American identity. The history of the Black Israelites is integral to the broader conversation about race, identity, and historical representation in today's society. Their contributions to cultural and social movements, their efforts to reclaim their heritage, and their ongoing struggle against historical erasure highlight the importance of acknowledging diverse narratives. By embracing and recognizing these stories, we move closer to a more inclusive and equitable future, where all identities are celebrated and respected. The fight for the recognition of Black Israelites is not just about the past. It is about shaping a future that honors the richness and complexity of all cultures, histories, and identities. The narrative of the Black Israelites and their efforts to reclaim their identity is deeply intertwined with the broader struggle against white supremacy and cultural erasure. For many in the Black community, identifying as descendants of the ancient Israelites provides a powerful counter-narrative to the oppression they have faced for centuries. However, This movement has encountered significant resistance, primarily from white supremacist groups who view such assertions of identity as a threat to their racial superiority. By undermining the legitimacy of Black Israelites' claims to heritage, these groups seek to maintain control over historical narratives, reinforcing systems of oppression and marginalization. White supremacist groups have employed various methods to delegitimize the identity and beliefs of the Black Israelites, primarily through propaganda and misinformation campaigns. These tactics aim to distort public perceptions of Black Israelites, painting them as extremists or misled individuals, thereby casting doubt on their heritage. This misinformation is spread through social media platforms, websites, and even mainstream media outlets, which often sensationalize stories related to Black Israelites, framing them negatively to align with white supremacist agendas. The widespread dissemination of these harmful stereotypes and false narratives can have a profound psychological impact on the Black community. Constant exposure to such misinformation can lead to internalized racism, where individuals begin to doubt the validity of their own heritage and cultural identity. This internalized doubt can create a sense of alienation, making it harder for individuals to embrace their cultural roots and take pride in their history. Additionally, the mental and emotional toll of being targeted by hate groups contributes to feelings of anxiety, depression, and helplessness, exacerbating the challenges faced by the Black community. The psychological effects of cultural erasure are profound, especially when individuals are disconnected from their historical narratives and cultural roots. The denial of one's heritage can lead to feelings of inadequacy, confusion, and alienation. Many individuals may struggle with defining their identity in a society that marginalizes their history or distorts it, making it more difficult to form a sense of belonging or self-worth. These struggles can negatively affect mental health and well-being, leading to a sense of disconnection that is hard to overcome without a clear understanding of one's cultural legacy. Despite these challenges, there are inspiring stories of individuals and communities actively working to reclaim their heritage. Many Black Israelites and members of the broader Black community are dedicating themselves to rediscovering and celebrating their cultural roots. Through grassroots movements, cultural events, educational initiatives, and community outreach, these individuals are challenging the narratives imposed upon them and asserting their rightful place in history. Cultural preservation plays a critical role in combating the forces of erasure and empowering marginalized communities. By documenting their histories, sharing stories, and celebrating their traditions, communities can create counter-narratives that highlight their resilience, contributions, and significance in the broader historical context. This cultural preservation takes many forms, including oral histories, literature, art, music, and religious practices, all of which serve to enrich the cultural landscape and offer a more accurate representation of the Black experience. Preserving culture also helps foster intergenerational connections, allowing younger generations to learn from their ancestors and carry forward the legacies of their forebears. In a society that often seeks to erase or diminish Black history, cultural preservation is a powerful tool for empowerment and healing. By reconnecting with their roots, individuals not only honor their past, but also pave the way for a more inclusive and equitable future. Social media has emerged as a transformative tool in the fight against cultural erasure and misinformation. Platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok have become essential for Black Israelites and their allies in amplifying marginalized voices and sharing their stories. These platforms allow activists and community members to challenge the false narratives perpetuated by white supremacist groups, celebrate their identities, and educate others about the complexities of Black history. Hashtags, viral campaigns, and online discussions have proven to be effective in reaching broad audiences, fostering solidarity among individuals who share similar experiences, and encouraging dialogue around issues of race, heritage, and identity. The digital landscape has made it easier for people to access information, connect with others, and engage in discussions that challenge dominant historical narratives. In the ongoing struggle for cultural recognition and respect, supporting initiatives that promote awareness of Black history and the Black Israelite narrative is crucial. By participating in local events, donating to organizations focused on education and preservation, or simply sharing content that highlights Black history, individuals can contribute to a larger movement of resistance and reclamation. Supporting these initiatives not only helps amplify marginalized voices, but also fosters a more inclusive society where diverse histories are celebrated and valued. In this discussion, we've explored the historical significance of the Black Israelites and the ongoing impact of white supremacy on their narrative. Emerging in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Black Israelites sought to reclaim their identity as descendants of the ancient Israelites, offering a powerful counter-narrative to the oppressive history they faced. However, these efforts have been met with significant resistance, primarily from white supremacist groups seeking to erase or distort their history. Understanding this context is essential for addressing the broader struggles faced by marginalized communities in their quest for recognition and respect. By engaging with the narratives of the Black Israelites and supporting cultural preservation efforts, we can work together to honor their resilience, reclaim their history, and promote a more inclusive and equitable future. This conversation is about more than the past. It is about building a society where all identities are respected, celebrated, and valued. Through collective action, we can ensure that the stories of Black Israelites and other marginalized communities are heard, acknowledged, and honored.